Yep.
Good morning, everybody. So we're going to start with a great subject this morning, conflict resolution and discipline. And we're going to start talking about prevention of conflict resolution and emotion management. So obviously, conflict management doesn't mean I am right, you are wrong, or you are right, I'm wrong. It's more about finding the best positive outcome through a conflict that we have with someone in a tiny short period of time, which is not really helpful for referees. But we're going to have more chats about what we can do to be more prepared around this. So obviously, being a referee is not a very easy thing. You know, there are both external and internal challenges when it comes to refereeing. So obviously, the external challenges we face when we're refereeing is possibly lacking experience, being unfamiliar with coaches and being unfamiliar with teams, facing difficult or unique situations in a game. It could be having a lot of refereeing commitments during the day, which is not helpful for our brain cells, as we are all aware. A lot of social challenges. Sometimes we have big crowds, and crowd management can be quite difficult for all of us. Being assessed by someone can be a big factor to us feeling more stressed. And also social media coverage, sometimes games being streamed can increase the anxiety of us during the game. Now, when it comes to internal challenges, sometimes we let them aside, but I think being aware of them, each of us are unique to our own stress and how we manage that. And I think the more we become aware of how we feel, the better we manage ourselves. So obviously, confidence is a big thing when we are stressed. Confidence is going low. We sometimes feel the lack of ability to focus. It's hard to focus when you're stressed and your heartbeats are super increased. There are physical effects. Sometimes, our mouths get dry during games, or, palms are sweaty, or sometimes we have a little bit of, shaking or trembling. And also, of course, heartbeats being increased. In terms of cognitive stuff, sometimes, a rally takes place and then something happens and then we tend to overanalyze, and the next rally is going on and we are still overanalyzing and, almost catastrophizing what has happened. Stress also makes us feel quite impatient. There are times where, our whistling is a bit more fast, or, our reactions are a bit more fast. And obviously, people can recognize that their body language changes, when we are quite stressed, and our communication as well changes a lot. So, what can we do to prevent that, and how we can prepare ourselves, being more aware of the external and internal challenges? The first thing you will see here is kindness and respect. These things are universal, no matter what language you talk or where you come from. Being kind and respectful is actually building a positive relationship with both the teams and the coaches. And it addresses, obviously, unfamiliarity. Being transparent and honest with what's going on, be factual about the things you are discussing with teams and the coaches. Be aware of your own body language and facial expressions. When if your facial expressions show hostility, then this is what you're gonna get from coaches and teams. And be well mannered. Obviously, this is how we demonstrate that we are professionals and we are confident professionals. I always encourage people to observe teams during the warm up. I think this gives you quite a lot of information. I think it helps quite a lot, for example, to be understanding what you're facing in terms of emotional intelligence and maturation of the players. For example, if you're doing an under 20s, I think you should be aware that you will have to contain and manage way more emotions than actually, officiating a seniors game, which sometimes differs, as we all know. But I think, if a person is a 19 or an 18-year-old boy or girl, their emotions probably are double the intensity of a senior male or female player. Situation management, I think, is a very interesting one. when we discuss anticipation, sometimes people think that, oh, I can predict everything. Obviously you can't, but if you go in a game where there is one or two players that are causing quite a hassle, you are then more prepared to support conflict management, and you're like, if that happens, then this is what I can do to prevent that from happening or escalating. Being an active listener, I think that's a very important thing. If people are directed to you, answer the question, but also make sure that you have boundaries and time, and time limits. Emotional intelligence is an interesting one as well. Being able to read emotions of other people, know what's happening there. If you see a player, clenching their fists, that means, okay, there's something happening there. There is something that I will need to address quite shortly because their emotions have changed. And also be flexible. I think it's self-explanatory what that means. Things that we can do. I split them up pre-match, during match, and post-match because I think that is three very different stages. So pre-match, I think knowledge of the rules is quite essential. If sometimes you think you're missing something, it's always good to go back. If you're traveling with a bus to a court and you're like, oh, I don't remember that, maybe it's good to go back and look at that, because I think being knowledgeable around the rules of the game makes you more confident in applying them. Do some scenario planning, but don't overanalyze or catastrophize situations. Obviously, if we could predict the future, we would all be billionaires. And, it's merely impossible. But as I said, if you have, a match with a team that, it can be quite challenging, it's always good to prepare yourself and do some scenario planning on how to manage or prevent conflict. And yes, third one, avoid catastrophizing or overanalyzing, because that will be extremely counterproductive. When it comes to during the match, remain positive. Sometimes we make mistakes, but I think it's important to not allow a mistake to remove your ability to control the rest of the game. Try to call what you see and don't try to compensate for a mistake you've done the previous rally. I think that's quite an important one. You can't balance it out. You made a mistake, that's fine. We move forward. When it comes to decision making and disciplinary, I think it's important to be positively reinforcing and not punitive. Again, try to anticipate. Sometimes most of us referee teams, we already know, so we kind of know who are the people that might create a little bit of trouble during games. I have a big list. Can I take it up? Yes. And be prepared to answer the why question. So if someone, if a captain comes over to ask for an explanation, be able and confident, clear in your communication to explain why. And support and protect your team. We are a big team of people. We have a score sheet keeper, we have line judges, we have your second referee, you're the first referee, you're a big team. So during the match, you need to prepare to protect everybody, not just yourself. Post-match, and I think that this is something that sometimes you see referees, finishing a match and just rushing out, which is okay, but also extremely counterproductive. I think having discussions and reflections with your team is actually very good, no matter what grade of referee or where they're coming from and what their experience. Sometimes they see more than you see, or sometimes you see more than they see. So I think feedback is quite an important thing when it happens in a kind and respectful way and not in a competitive way. It can go a long way, and it can support people becoming better in every single match. Another thing that I think is important is, sometimes we have situations where even before the match or during the warm-up, there's a lot of discussions, conflict management, or this is not working, this is, ask as many questions as you can, allow the opportunity to be well informed about what decision you're gonna make. It makes people respect you and it also diffuses resistance from people. Time and again, we had situations where nets are not great, things are happening and stuff like that, and you have to move from coach to coach to kind of like manage that. Ask as many questions as you can. I think it's helpful, and it shows that you're actively listening and you're caring about what you're doing. Provide with both positive and negative options. This is what we can do, but this is what can happen also. This is the positive thing, this is the negative thing, because this is the way that you allow people to make informed decisions. Use disciplinary actions when it is appropriate for restoration of the game, to balance the game and not for punishment. And more importantly, as I said earlier on, I think by being aware of the potential issues that might occur from specific coaches or players, you become more prepared to address them. Discipline. Obviously, it says here, what does it really mean in volleyball? So I was hoping to get some views from you. What do you think discipline is? If anyone wants to answer. I think it's too early.
Staying in control.
Yep. Good one.
That's the best one.
Anyone else?
Respect other people.
Yep, very good.
What was that one?
Respect other people.
Follow the rules.
Follow the rules.
Or know the rules.
Yes.
So no, it's not because you know them that you follow them every time. But also, I think part of it is understanding other people's emotions. If you lose 5 points in a row by hitting the ball into the net, that player is going to get frustrated, and it's just self-control.
Yeah, absolutely. Fair. Anybody else?
Preparation.
Yep.
So be prepared, as in get there on time.
Absolutely.
Be dressed properly, have your whistle, have your cards, have your simple things, checklist.
Yes.
Maybe be aware of your adrenaline levels.
Yep.
As a captain, and when you're going to the referee and you get the response that you don't like, you should potentially realize that, okay, I got the answer. I should not have a discussion or anything. I should know that my adrenaline runs high and kind of be disciplined in that manner.
And I think it comes, absolutely. And it comes both ways. I think our adrenaline as referees is also high at times, especially when something unique happens. We are not robots, we are humans. So sometimes we are experiencing the same adrenaline kicks that a player might have during a match. Okay. So I've put some things up, but you all gave quite a good amount of valuable answers there. So restoration of the game is a very good thing, I think, because sometimes it's really difficult when you have people coming and going. I think John has a good example. He will talk to us about that later on. People coming and going. So if you give people the opportunity to come over and speak to you about something, and you're like, okay, this is it, you're not going to do it again, then you're giving them a clear boundary there. And you're restoring the game by saying you now need to contain your emotions and your behaviors. So ultimately, it is that person's responsibility to manage that, and it's your responsibility to make sure that the game will be restored. Fairness. I think fairness in the application of the rules of the game is really important as well. When someone's going off the rails, becomes volatile and disruptive during the game, we need to be fair. We need to be fair and respectful towards other coaches or players. We need to make sure that we remain fair. Emotion management and containment, understanding people's emotions, as you said, Alexis, is a really important thing there, and how we manage discipline around that. We're gonna talk about that soon. And also, it's a confidence boost for us. We are the judge of the game. We are the first referee. This is why we are there, and everybody who is there signed up for that. They should know that we are ruling the game and the disciplinary actions. Now, act confident, be confident. What a big theme, isn't it? It's quite hard to put it into 3 slides, but we're gonna try to walk through this. So obviously, if you go to a match scared and intimidated, we all know that everybody can see that. And usually what happens is players will challenge you in a formal way. Obviously, players want to win and they will find every possible way to do that. That might mean obviously talking loudly or shouting at you, trying to gaslight you around decisions that you've made. Or sometimes they might shout to you in a way that can be perceived as criticism. So they're criticizing your decisions instead of a captain coming over and ask you what was the interpretation of the rule. Or they might try to, in the warm up, be overly friendly with you, come over and chat to you and stuff like that. And then they will be like, "Oh, well, I can turn over to you now in a minute's time or in a second's time, as you may know." So obviously, we know that most of the times rallies last around 6 seconds. So what we need to do to remain confident is focus. The more we focus, the more capable we are to apply the right rules in fairness. When we whistle, we need to do it in a confident way. And we need to make sure that our team remains involved. So we whistle and we look at our line judges and our second referee, because this is how we keep everybody in the team interacting with us. And as I said, we are a team. We are not just one person. We need to make sure that our signals remain relaxed. If you are just, very quickly making actions with your body, they can perceive your body language as quite stressed and impatient. And also, ball handling is your jurisdiction, is nobody else's. So ultimately, you make the final call. I'll show you a little bit of a video here, so you see. Hopefully, it's gonna work. Let me see. It's not working. I'm very sorry about that. How do I screen out? This is a double.
Can you drag it over to the other screen?
What's the other screen? Is it working?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Now you can't see the voice.
I'll do this.
There you go.
Right.
No, I didn't see it.
Sorry about that. Technical issues. At least there's no questionable ads. So let's have a look at this. So obviously you can see the line judge is showing in, the ball is out, and it starts a commotion there. Look at what the referee does. So you can see he's not just standing talking, he's just bending down, actively listening, but also being quite boundaried, yes? How do we stop this? I'm really sorry, guys. Can you see? No, I just need to get out of this. I didn't have enough coffee today, I'm very sorry. Right.
You went back to drinking slides.
Yes, that's okay. Did I go back? No. I told you need to show me that before we start. You
I
didn't?
can't see the cursor.
There we go. There's gonna be more, so it's gonna be 5 minutes of delay on each slide. Right, so you could clearly see what the referee did. Ultimately, it was his jurisdiction to make the call. You could clearly see the ball out. There was a commotion there. He actively listened to the player. However, he said, "That's it. That's my decision. We're not gonna sit here and ruminate over it." Very calmly as well. It wasn't that he was impatient or anything. He just did exactly what he should have done.
Sorry, can I just add that one sentence? Like, I like the fact that the player, and we get that a lot, for the line judge, but it's like ultimately it's your end decision, and that's what they put. It's my call, and you just stood up and said that's it.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's all about that confidence of being like, I am making the decision now. This is my decision. This is what I saw. Right. Knowing the rules, the most important thing, that makes us extremely confident. If we know the rules and we have them in our pocket, that's it. We can rule the game with no issues. So obviously, some things that we see time and again that are happening in games, we've all experienced these things, right? Game captain. The game captain is the only person on court that can come and speak to you and approach you about the interpretation of rules. The coach is the only person off court that can talk to the score sheet keeper about anything that is not up on the scoreboard. For example, a coach can go to the score sheet keeper and say how many times I have left, or how many substitutions if they forgot about the substitutions. The coach can't interrogate the second referee. We see time and again coaches going over, like slowly and start talking, or they're criticizing. They're like, didn't you see that net? And they go back. And the moment you make, as a second referee, the moment you make a reaction, that's it. You are hooked for life. For the rest of the game, they're going to come over and they comment on everything you're doing and you're not doing. So be prepared to actually, walk away. The moment you see them, you can just walk away, go to the other post and don't acknowledge, or start a conversation. Some coaches as well, usually, the game finishes and they come over and they start discussions. Be mindful and careful about that. If the game captain approaches with a request for explanation, as you saw in the video as well, try to bend down, go to their level. Don't talk to them over there. Don't overrule them. It makes communication easier. It diffuses issues as well, because they can clearly see that you're actively listening to them, even if their opinion is different from yours. Never dismiss the game's captain, provided that is a request for an explanation of the rules. If the captain comes over and he's like talking to you about other things, or they don't specifically ask for interpretation of the rule, you can just say no. I don't think we should have a discussion about that. Never have both game captains underneath the referee's chair unless you are laying down law. So that means if you have like two players that will have an altercation and you're prepared to give two red cards, they can be there and you can give them the cards. But ideally, it would be good, if someone comes over, if a coach comes over, if a player comes over to ask for an interpretation from one team and the other one approaches, you can just kindly say it's okay, and discuss with a game captain. Never be afraid to consult your officials. Sometimes it's really helpful when we're trying to diffuse situations from escalating. It gives a breather to everybody. So even if you have seen something, or especially when you have not been able to see something, you can always call your second referee, have a discussion with them about what they've seen, or you can call your line judges and say, what did you see? Was that in? Was that out? If it was a ball close to any lines. Remember that under no circumstance should the referee allow outbursts and insults. Kindness and being kind and respectful and a good professional and kind professional referee doesn't necessarily mean you have to relinquish all control. There are times where you have to apply disciplinary actions, and it's okay to do that. It establishes the boundaries you need to control the game. And be mindful as well of the members of coaching staff. Time and again, we see the members of coaching staff just doing whatever they like, or kind of like intervening excessively. It's important as well to manage these behaviors also. Second referee, obviously, because I know that most of us spent most of our season being a first referee, but I think it's always important to remember second referees, what we need to do, and also be mindful of what might happen to our second referees whilst we are first referees. So obviously the second referee is much closer to the coach than the first referee. I think there's times, see what I said earlier on about, the coaches approaching and having discussions with you. Selective hearing is a good skill to have. I know you're laughing, Jerry, but it is what it is. It's good to have selective hearings. And sometimes, if you see someone approaching ready to tell you something, even if it is, are we going for a pint later on? You just move away, you just go to the other post and just waiting there, if the coach continues to be quite disruptive, or they are insulted you and your decisions, then you can just, with a small whistle, you can show the coach to your first referee, and then a disciplinary action should follow. Yes.
That without consultation.
I suppose it depends. If you are able to fully understand what was happening, if you were able to hear because sometimes, people do shout quite loudly and you can clearly hear what's being said. But if you are unclear, obviously you can call your second referee and say, what has happened there? I wasn't able to hear. Could you guide me through what happened? So depending on what has happened, and you obviously, proceed with what disciplinary you think is the most appropriate.
Is it the second referee's perception or the first referee's perception?
I suppose when I personally, when I referee, I say to my line judges and my second referee, I say to them, if something happens, come over and tell me what they said verbatim. Not come over and be like, oh, he was a bit rude. Tell me exactly what rude means. So if someone said, for F's sake, what was that? Then it makes it clear what you need to do. And we will discuss about that later on. There is a slide about swearing and how we manage swearing.
Simplest way to put it, if the second referee finds it offensive and the first referee doesn't, is it just back up the second referee, or do I make a decision?
I suppose if the second referee found that offensive, that's the second referee's experience. So ultimately, you will need to protect your team, because if you don't do that, you've lost your second referee.
Yeah, I think that's the most important bit. You're first referee, you're in charge, and you need to protect your referee team.
So ultimately, you need to protect them. You have to make sure that they feel safe in an environment to continue to be focused and doing what they need to be doing. So ultimately, you have to make a decision there.
Just quickly, in terms of technically the effect of the second referee blowing the whistle to signal the first coach, how would you be whistling that? Would you be just giving the same kind of whistle you would normally give when you start a point or end a point? Or would you just kind of modulate it a tiny bit?
I would say a short whistle would be enough to gain the attention, because sometimes, oh, sorry, Greg. Oh, sorry. I suppose what usually happens is, as a first referee, you usually just roam around making sure that everything is controlled and perfect. Sometimes because your vision is just moving about, sometimes you can't really see. So even a short whistle to just point that, or a short whistle, lift your hand up, approach, obviously the first referee will tell you, yeah, come over, and you have a full discussion about what has happened. I think that's more than enough.
I can't just see players, if they're already standing in position, misconstruing that as imagining it's a whistle for serve.
It's the same as you want to attract the captain.
Yeah.
You do a short to
Just a short one. Yeah, absolutely.
Normally, against a first referee, before you issue a yellow card for something, you could talk to the captain or say, like, can I signal, like, no more?
You're jumping ahead. But yes.
You're saying what they'll say the post and ignore them, more to say to the coach. I can hear you that you've said something. It's not bad enough to go to the first ref and say there's a card or whatever. You want to go, what you're saying, no more. Because if you ignore them,
Yes.
there's a chance the coach will go, well, I never get punished for that. I'm going to do it again.
I suppose so. So that's why I said that there are times where you can exercise selective hearing, and there are times where you shouldn't. So there are boundaries and limits in selective hearing as well. So if you have someone swearing at you all the time, that's not going to be selective hearing, is it? It's there. It happens constantly, and you can see the hostility, in the body language, the move about, and they come over, towards you quite, you can interpret these things. That's why I said be mindful of body language as a first and second referee is essential, because even if you don't hear, as a first referee, you don't hear, and you see someone marching over to your second referee, you know that there is something there that it's going to be more of a conflict than a discussion. Oh, great day, isn't it? You can understand, and then obviously you make your own decisions. If it's not a situation where, disciplinary, a red card or a yellow card is required, then obviously you can call the captain and say, well, you need to let the coach know that, he needs to behave, he needs to be respectful towards the second referee and the rest of the team,
Do you not see that touch? Did you see the net move? Or did you,
Absolutely, but if you take your whistle out and you turn over and it's like, oh no, I didn't see it, or you create a dialogue, then what happens is the gates of hell open, and then every time there is a questionable thing, they will always come over and say, did you not see the touch, or the ball was in, did you not see it? Oh, come on. And then it escalates, and maybe a mistake will happen, and then that's it. It's a ticking bomb. So I suppose when we talk about selective hearing, it's kind of like being able to contain that and manage that in the best possible way.
I think the selective hearing is key for me, though. You shouldn't have to do it every second point.
No.
Your scenario might not be so bad that you need to speak to the referee, but you could maybe tell the second referee that's that, and then at least the first referee's seen this, and then they know that it still carries on the action.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
if you do tell the captain, make sure he actually goes and tells the coach.
Yes.
Not that you tell the captain and the captain just goes back to playing. Make sure the captain actually goes to the coach and speaks to him.
Very true.
So that's a genuine question. Is a lot of times I see it where you call the captain over as first referee because of the player misconducting, and then you'll ask them to go back and communicate what you've told them about calming down the player. And actually, they'll just go into position and won't say a thing and just keep going up. And the next point, then you're having to sanction that player. Is there any kind of leniency in calling that player over with the captain, having a chat there, so he's received the instructions that you're giving out, or not really? If that makes sense.
From the very beginning, when you say to someone, go tell to number 4 that they need to behave respectfully, there is an expectation that the player, the captain needs to do that. So if they don't do that, you call them again and you instruct them again.
Before continuing.
So
you make sure they actually do tell.
Make sure that they do it. You then have to take disciplinary action.
Or the time delay, would that be?
Time delay.
A time delay because you've already had to speak to them twice about a simple thing. So
I do make sure we do it because I get filled up. A European match for exactly this. Called the captain over, go and tell your coach. The captain sort of walked over to the coach, looked like he said something, so I was happy, continued through the game, and I got pulled up after the match and shown a video where the captain actually walks over and just the coach. You should really, the player or the coach is given the one who should send the hand up to acknowledge.
Any other questions? Let's leave them for later. That's fine. Cool. Weapons of war. So I'm going to start with the ones that we rarely use.
you had to do it.
Yes.
Oh
no, I don't have it now, but it was the first time I disqualified someone in the 9 years I'm refereeing. Anywho, disqualification obviously is a red and yellow card separately. Expulsion, actually disqualification. Let's start with what it is, because sometimes did I? Not caffeinated enough, I told you. So disqualification means that the player will no longer be able to play for the rest of the match. Expulsion, which happens with a red and yellow card in the same hand, it means that the player can no longer play for the set. A warning, a yellow card, obviously we all know it applies to the individual player, the coach, or whoever is getting the yellow card, but it is a team thing. So when we give a yellow card to someone or an individual of a team, that means that we now reach the point of red cards following that. As you said, you can give an unofficial warning or a gesture or a small admonishment when things are not at the threshold of more serious disciplinary actions. Catch someone's eye, sometimes that's quite helpful, especially when we know the teams and we all know the teams, you know. But obviously, just because this is kind of like the rules as it is, it doesn't mean that you cannot dive into different cards at different points. So depending on the seriousness of the disrespect within the game, you can jump. For example, if someone swears quite in a volatile way, you know, you can jump onto a red card as opposed to giving a yellow card, if that makes sense. There is a video.
Collectively ask if anybody can see the door at mistake. No penalty, should. You've got disqualifying, spell, warn, misread.
I'm very sorry.
Did it deliberately, it's okay.
Is it?
Yeah.
There is a video I might need your help with. Thank you.
Professional.
How did it work?
Professional. I go back to start.
I can't see the screen.
No.
He's very much in control of this.
Of his own emotions.
What do you see exactly? This is it. So not all videos are great refereeing, but what do you see there?
Has the coach just put his arm? I'm not saying this is the.
Questionable ads. Back? Can we go back? Yes. Sorry.
Is it the fact that the coach is putting his arms up to signal out, or?
I mean, there is something there, but it's more about focusing on the referees.
No, I think he's pointing to the line judge, saying the line judge showed it out, so I'm going with the out.
Yeah.
But why would the blue captain approach?
Oh,
Quite an angry.
Well, player shows in, captain shows out. So much going on.
Doesn't it? That's the thing. That's it. That's exactly what is the key here. So obviously the captain approached him, but you could clearly see that this could escalate to something very different because the referees' emotions were taking the best out of him. So his reactions, you see how he pointed, at the line judge, and then he was like, if you could see him, he was like, if you come back, I'm gonna card you. So he showed him, he did the gesture of, I'm gonna card you. But everything happened in a way that it was a bit emotionally intense, and it could have escalated. Obviously, it didn't escalate in this case, but it could have escalated in a much more difficult conflict to resolve. And that's why we've discussed before. You saw the previous video where the referee, similar situation, he took absolute control over it by actively listening to the captain, but then being like, this is my decision, I'm going to take that and I'm going to say out. So you could see now a very different approach, which could have escalated to something a bit more explosive than that. Yes?
Do we take into consideration that there might have been something else that's happened before, like in the match? Or that captain has been approaching the referee all the time, for example?
I suppose so, but I think
questioning things that are not questionable. And
from my perspective, that doesn't give a permission to or justifies us being explosive. I suppose, because if we start, so the main thing that we are trying to do is obviously rule the game, but also contain our own selves, our adrenaline, our emotions, our overanalyzing, our overthinking, being like, you might have had 3 questionable ins and outs in the period of 5 minutes. And then you have another one, you're like, your brain is like, oh, here we go again, right? Because this is what we would say. If that's the 3rd time it happens in a period of 10 minutes, you would be like, oh, here we go again. So probably he's like, I've had enough of this. But then the behavior and the way that his emotions are portrayed does not help managing that conflict and being like, listen, this is what the line judge showed. This is this is what my team's seen. That's it. We make the fair decision up to what we've seen. And that's it. Instead of being quite intense.
So for me, the questionable thing there is, can captains do question calls that are, because they're not coming up to ask for an explanation of the rule, they're coming to question the decision of the referee that's final. So is that reasonable? Like, as you say, like, let's say that he has had 3 or 4 close in and out, and the captain every single time came over. That's not a thing that you can really question, is it? Because it's not an explanation of the rule, it's a questionable decision.
Oh, as a smart captain, I would come and say, what was your interpretation of the ball landing on the line?
Okay, that's fine. It's first time, okay, but then
So-
4th, 5th time. I mean,
So then you've told them that, and you can then go to this rather than getting really angry and emotional.
yeah, no, that's what
which I think
I'm
is,
saying.
like,
Can,
I
can
think that's the point of the video. Isn't it?
I suppose the point of the video is we've had the first video, we've seen very similar situation with a referee, being actively listening, just, and making sure that he is contained and emotionally in that context, which resolved it very quickly. And then we had this video, obviously it didn't escalate at this stage, but it could have escalated to a much bigger explosive conflict where cards were also taking place, if that makes sense. So it's more about yes.
On the basis of in and out, I don't think, at least from my experience, we don't get too many questioning from captains, So it's in or out, whatever. So we go line judge, second ref, so making ultimate decision. What I find more often happening, it's a call on a double touch, and that's where captains, like, literally they just leaving right next to your position as first ref, come approaching you, asking so many times. So I do go with that.
I still think that the in and out is important, because if we go back with the concept of protecting your refereeing team, a lot of players get aggressive to online judges thinking that it's okay to do so because they don't have the power to sanction. And I've seen a lot of line judges get scared or very reluctant to then call, get very hesitant afterwards.
It's a form of intimidation for the players that are and that they are basically the next, I suppose, questionable call, or it's there, I hope it goes in their favour and everything else, because they're, like you say, the line judge and that is reluctant to make that call, doesn't want to make the call, then just says, that's it.
And more so here, exactly. And more so here that most of the line judges we have in our teams, they are volunteer line judges who, they are not prepared to face the intensity sometimes of some games and some questionable things.
Nor should they have to.
Nor should they have to.
See the point I made earlier about the second referee's perception and then giving the yellow card. Can the line judge do that? So the line judge could come over and
You can call a line judge. Yes, absolutely. You can call a line judge to ask them what they've seen. Absolutely.
Advocate with that. I do see a lot of the games where, and I know that's what this whole session is about, is a lot of the less experienced referees, particularly the grade 4s, aren't actively managing their line judges, and so the teams are getting really frustrated because one of the line judges was a player who played the game before, and they're calling down. Or one of the line judges is pulling their phone out between rallies, and that's not being adequately managed. So I think that would be, just to put that into perspective for everyone, that's probably where a lot of the problems come from with the line judging. Because when you're playing and you look over and the line judge is talking to the rest of his team on the side, every chance he gets, you have no respect for his calls.
I just players who we generally know
I suppose we all know there's been times where we refereed with line judges who were on their phones and quite not there, both mentally and physically. But time and again, you have to you have to manage that. But you know, yes,
That's part of the briefing session at the beginning of the match, that you expect
precisely.
you say that as a team you work together, and they expect you to be calling your line decisions. And what I do is, if they don't call a decision, I wait
Until
everybody looks at that line judge, and for the rest of that match, that line judge will be calling everything. So it's getting them on board as a team at the very, very beginning.
It's same like pre-brief before the game. Also, you just tell your line judges, I will check with you on this side and that side. So please remain for the eye contact.
Craig.
Maybe a question. If you, as a referee, you talk to your line judges before, you've done all of that, but then you realise this line judge isn't competent. I've signalled them, put your phone away, whatever, and they've not. What would actually be the process to be like, here, there's other line judges sitting aside, we need to swap.
You should be a reserve line judge in the first second
There's never one.
It's not going to happen.
I know it's
Realistically,
not, but how would you?
As a referee, you would just make it happen. Again, there should be a match supervisor who would be dealing with that. Clearly, we don't have that. But we have the game organizer, so the host club. They should be in charge of the game, and if you really had a problem with line judge, you should speak to that person. The problem is quite often the
I need to be playing that.
but that's besides the point, and they should make the switch as soon as there's somebody else
Aye.
That's clearly controversial in the hand.
Should we keep these questions for later? Because what I think is important, obviously I understand line judges is important, but I want us to crack on and do a little bit more of that, because I think we are time. Are we okay? If it is for line judges, keep it for later. If it is for disciplinary, Jerry.
The point that you alluded to earlier on is in the first video, the referee went down and spoke to the guy on his level. In the second video, the guy was standing there giving it a big eye arm and giving it, and that didn't work.
Yeah. So it's just that our presentation and our body language and how we manage emotions is really important. And maybe nothing really happened and it didn't escalate at this point, but it already created a fertile ground for things to escalate later. So how we behave and how we control our emotions is massively important throughout the game.
Yeah, just final thing from that sort of coaching point of view.
Yeah.
If you see a referee like that, the team is saying, yeah, field it.
Yeah.
We can now call for anything.
Anything.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's what, it's what people do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
The moment you sense that frustration and fear in a referee and intensity of emotions, the players are fully aware that they now can, you've lost control of the game, and they can start asking you questions or pestering you or challenging you or criticizing your decisions at any point. Right, moving on. Pretty honest, I think. In truth, we can never really convince someone that we made the right decision by force, especially when they are angry. There's absolutely no way we can do that. But the best we can do is say that, you know what, my team, my line judge, my second referee has seen that. We've all seen that. So this is what we whistle based on what we saw. Obviously, top events do have the video referee, which we don't have here. It's quite helpful, obviously, because it diffuses that. It gives a break to everybody. Everybody gets a break, until the video referee then is confirmed or not confirmed, and then a decision is based on video referee. But I think what we can do here to support ourselves is, when we need to create a breather, is call our second referee. You can call your second referee and say, what did you see? Even if you saw, just allow time and a little bit of a break and a breather. So then when the second referee comes over, everybody can see that you actually consulted your team. You didn't just solely based it on what you saw, and then you make a decision. And if someone questions that, then you can clearly say, my team, we've all seen that, and this is what we gave. This is the interpretation of the rule, full stop. is a good cool down time. Oh, sorry guys. Right. A very interesting thing that's from Andy's presentation as well, where it says cards are issued because the referee has made a mistake, which started a conversation with a player, and then it got challenging, and then another player, and then another player, and then another player, and there is a video that is particular. So I just click it. I'm just gonna click.
4 just to bring it within a point. Not yet. Neighbours now have another go though. Oh, really?
We're going to start spells that way, Tom.
Unmute it, I can't.
No, it mutes itself. Mhm.
Well, it's not the coach actually. I think it's the lip. Oh, is that the coach? Oh,
But the difference is obviously this is VNL, so the first referees at the right side as well.
Yes, so this is VNL. Coaches are behind you.
4 just to bring it within a point. Not yet. Neighbours now have another go though. Oh, really?
It's the same one. So what do you think about this? Was that a mistake or not?
So, as in the actual call, or
Yes. The call.
I thought it wasn't a carry.
It's a very good team, this volume.
I thought it was.
Whether it was, it took too long to make his decision.
Good job.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was too long.
He thought whistle, you mean?
He thought about it. He thought about it, and in that split seconds, he's lost it.
Yes,
You have to-
absolutely.
If you're going to call it, you have to call
Yeah,
it.
because the second one there.
Obviously, there's been a little bit of a delay in him whistling, first and foremost, so it wasn't a confident call. But then what happened after that is people realized that. I think from my perspective, he took a good while to whistle. It should have happened almost immediately. And then what happens is the team was like, oh, fertile ground here to start a challenge. You know, the coach comes over, you know, you can see the referee at the back trying to get the coach back, you know, try to contain that. All in all, he tries to have a conversation. He doesn't go down to actually say, this is my interpretation of the rule. This is what I think has happened. He continues to stand up being like, go away, go away, go away to everybody. And at some point, you know, obviously a yellow card has occurred. So in this case, especially because, you know, sometimes, you know, double touches and carries, some people are more lenient with it. Some people are more strict with it, you know, but even if it is your decision and you think that's the right decision, you need to have a consistent approach that is respectful towards everybody. So this is your decision making there. Call the captain. You have a coach throwing a tantrum right next to you. Call the captain. You know, be approachable. Listen to him actively. Say, this is my interpretation of the rule. I think this ball was a carry and I whistled it. That's it. Tell your coach to calm down. You know, and if it doesn't, then you give a yellow card. So I think it was kind of, again, emotionally uncontained, in my opinion, in this stage. So even if you want to give that and you make that decision, just make sure that everything else you do it in an approachable and actively listening way.
Sorry, I've got a question again.
Yes.
Going back to my other point again, if that was the fourth or fifth call, and he's already explained it to the captain, these are my expectations of a carry or whatever, and this is the fifth thing, they're challenging that call, do you still keep going down and explain it to them, or do you then just go straight away, as soon as they're approaching after you've made that carry go, you see them coming, but you then just go straight away, no, I'm not
I suppose-
playing you again, or do you,
Yeah.
you enter that discussion?
How
For
how
the fifth time.
how do you issue a card though? You need to issue a card to someone. You need to call your captain. You need to call a captain and saying your coach's behavior is inappropriate, and it's quite insulting. Therefore, he's getting a yellow card. So the captain needs to tell that to the coach, and the coach needs to lift their hand whilst they're receiving the card. So ultimately, even if it was the fifth time or the sixth time, you can't just be like, okay, yeah, I don't care about what you say. This is what I saw, whatever. You want to issue a card, you need to do it right. You need to call the captain, make sure that the person that receives the card knows of it, whether that is a yellow or a red or whatever.
Following up on that question, I'm thinking about, again, a captain that might be kind of pestering the referee with explanations, and you can clearly see that it's intentional and it's causing a delay. Do you sanction that captain with a delay?
I suppose
On the
yes,
second
but
or third time, you can say like, listen, I explained you already that situation. It's exactly the same situation as it was before. If you will asking again for that, I will give you a yellow card.
Not at the same rally, but next rally, same thing.
Yeah, but like say, if it's exactly the same
you can't sit for 5 minutes trying to explain the same thing you've said 2 minutes ago. Obviously they will come over. You will still acknowledge that they came over. You're not going to be like, oh, go away. You acknowledge that they come over. You give them the opportunity to come over. And the moment they start talking to you about what they were ruminating 5 minutes ago, obviously you have to set boundaries. You are controlling the game, so you have to set boundaries in a way, but in a way that is respectful and is emotionally contained.
You've got feeling that's sort of it's constantly happening. You can say, well, you've had examples of what I'm considering. I'm calling it a carry, whatever it is. Says, look, I've explained it, yeah. So it's now on the onus of yourself to stop coming up questioning authorities because you're quite clear. I've made it clear what I'm considering a carry. So if it happens again, you want to query it. It's now up to the player, the captain, or the coach to change the behavior of the team or that player, or tell the player. If you're going to do that, you're going to get called. Ultimately, that's the end of it. The ref's clear on what he's decided. This is a carry. That's what I see happening all the time. There's no point coming to question. I'll quite gladly help and sort of explain my interpretation. But after like 3 times, you say, look, 4th time,
enough.
Your player has to change his behavior.
Yes.
Otherwise, I'm going to be blind for the rest of the game,
yes.
whether you like it or not.
So in theory, yes. But you remember now, everything that we're doing in volleyball, all the rule changes and things, or most of them, that's try to stop delays. So you need to say it in 5 words instead of 100.
Yeah.
And that's seriously all. Every time you have to speak to a captain, it should be as short as possible. It should refer back to the rules and why you interpret it that way. And if it's a handling fault, which is, as Val said earlier, is what the majority of captains will come and challenge you on, it's saying that I've set my level, I'm happy and consistent, so you are happy.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. But then, like I said, if he keeps going bad for it, then that's when
Well, yeah,
escalate
if
as
you come
well.
back a
But-
second time, I want to explain this if you come again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you set the level.
Ultimately, you're really there to sort of, well, sort of not enforce the rules, but apply the rules to the game in such a way that you can play without those delays in it. You're just there to facilitate the game. Ultimately,
Absolutely.
the idea of a rep.
And we know time and again that there is teams that actually take that advantage. They will come over and try to question you every single time, just creating a delay. Right, let's move to the next slide. Did I move? Swearing. I took off the swear words because I knew we were recording, but I will leave that to your interpretation, yes? So, probably there's many typos that you haven't seen, Jerry. I'm guaranteeing that this was not made in whilst me caffeinated. So obviously we have the first one, which is someone makes a mistake. For example, things are not going well and they are like, using the F word, but on themselves because they've messed up. Yeah. What we could possibly do and what we should probably do is give a warning. So if someone starts sweating all the time during the game, being like, F this and F that and F that every time they make a mistake, I don't think that's respectful or appropriate. So again, you approach that in a way that you're not being condescending or punitive. You're calling the player, and what you could possibly tell them, I know your adrenaline is sky high, and you've made a mistake, but I think you need to be using more appropriate words. In a kind and respectful way, not in a way that you would start challenging the person whilst their adrenaline is sky high, actually letting them know that you believe that their behavior is inappropriate. Second one, I think everybody can translate that, right? Cool. So let's say the referee makes a decision and the player goes over. I used to do that when I was younger, a younger player. I never stopped sweating, so I was the most carded player in any season in Greece, not here. So obviously you have this, which is directed to the decision, because they're like, oh, for F's sake, what was that? Probably would be the next sentence you would hear. This should be carded as yellow. You have someone, not coming over for an interpretation of the rule. They are already being quite disrespectful towards the decision and yourself. So it needs to be appropriately addressed with a yellow card. Yep. So this one, pretty similar, but you will see what I mean. So obviously it says ref, that was right.
Never a touch.
Well, I wish it was that. Never a touch. Red. That would be amazing, wouldn't it? The game would finish so quickly, actually. But obviously, it's an insulting word here that is directed to both yourself and also the decision. And if it keeps happening, it's probably gonna give you quite a lot of trouble. So I suppose what you could use in that situation would be a red card. If someone is directed at you and they are sweating at you and your decision, then they need to take action. I'll leave that to your imagination. You can think of anything and everything insulting you could ever think. We're talking about sweating only. Yeah. So ref, you are beep beep beep. Yeah. So that's now directed to you. There's someone there insulting you directly, and then you need to take action. Again, I suppose you could use a red and yellow, but I'll leave that to your, again, interpretation of the rules. Probably it could be an expulsion. In Greece, for example, when these things happen, and they do happen very often, very, very often, you would have a referee, sending someone being like, okay, I'm going to take you off the set for now. Go and calm down and come back later. This is the usual conversation. Obviously, I'm not asking you to use that here. Probably it's not going to be as effective, but obviously, you'll need to take a level of action there as well. Does that make sense?
You have a list of foreign swings.
It's like a dictionary, basically.
I stole that from Andy's. Discipline PowerPoint. So I'll ask Andy if he has a.
I know it's a overall point, but it's a good point.
I know a lot of.
Just read my mind.
When we asked most of the top countries for the men, he usually was something. The San Marino coach went nuts at one point, and Veronica was still about, and she obviously understood every single word of it, and the referees were quite comfortable with what it actually said. Yeah. So yeah, it is important. You can generally tell by the way something said as well.
So, ref, you're the seventh wonder of the world. That's a nice thing. But,
yes.
What about sarcasm?
Risky.
If a captain comes over, obviously they think there was a bad decision. That's a very good call. Very well done. Yeah.
I think it should be equally disciplined. You shouldn't be allowing someone being sarcastic.
So it's not just
Yeah, absolutely.
just kind of call them over and say, look, well, okay, I know you're saying that sarcastically, but I don't want this to escalate anymore.
Yeah.
Enough's enough.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you'd have to give maybe level 1 warning for talking about sarcasm, because you kind of know what he's doing, but he's not doing it in a way that, I suppose, in theory, warrants any cards or any kind of real talk, but you would have to kind of be saying, well, bring the captain over, it's not the captain, it's the player. Say, look, tell this guy, decision will be final. That stops, for his attitude stops.
There'll be multiple examples of
Yeah.
volleyball and other sports of somebody receiving a yellow card and the player walking away clapping, and they'll be called straight back red.
Red, yes. I had the situation in San Marino, Ireland, Northern Ireland. I don't know why, but I traditionally first referee this game always. And there was a situation where we had Ireland here, Northern Ireland here. So the ball was kind of like, it was a first ball, it was really bad first ball. The person, you know, he went out the antenna, a person tried to retrieve it. Nobody annoyed him or anything, nobody interfered. And then obviously the libero didn't manage to get the ball, obviously he fell on the floor. And then a player from Northern Ireland goes almost on top of him and be like, so even if the ball was out and it was a point for Northern Ireland, a red card was out almost immediately, being like, you shouldn't be doing that. And, you know, the point was given to the other team because, you know, there is a high level of disrespect there for another player who is trying really hard to retrieve a ball. And the player, you know, the opponent goes on top of them and being like, yeah, great job. So that was sarcasm. It wasn't like, it wasn't aggressive, wasn't anything at all, but it had to be punished. And a yellow card, in my perspective, wasn't enough to punish that. It wasn't enough to punish that. This is a gesture in a court full of people, spectators, children there, seeing a player being like so disrespectful towards an opponent. That's not right.
I mean, something like this in any other sport, because the beauty in volleyball is we've got that net that physically separates players. But in any other sport, something like that happens, the other team will be straight over on the other player's face.
Yeah. Yes, it happens in Liechtenstein. It happened again to me. Yeah, it happened to me again in Liechtenstein, where it was the first time I disqualified the player because an altercation happened, a push, you know, chaos. And then obviously the player had to be disqualified, but it can escalate. That is why you have to be prepared. You know, if you know that there's two teams you are refereeing that are quite, you know, there's a lot of emotional intensity you need to contain alongside yours. Because I'm not the, you know, I don't have years of pack of experience in my pocket internationally. So, you know, on top of everything, you know, you have to control yourself, you have to control the game, but you need to make a decision that is respectful and fair for everybody.
A quick one in a similar
scenario
as you explained. Our player just made the chase for the ball, obviously surpassed the referee stand, gets close to the ball, and what he faces is a scare movement from the other team's player, opposite team player. Scare movement like dig in the face, yeah? Or pretending we'll dig the ball.
Okay.
Ball's going up, all right? So I was trying to get any answers on that, and couldn't get much, but the referee completely dismissed that.
I think that's unsportsmanship conduct.
It's a misconduct, isn't it? Because you are in somewhat you are trying to interfere, and also you're trying to.
Question: card, no card.
Card.
Yeah. Believe it or not, my post was removed from Facebook.
Oh, was it? Oh, really? I never saw. Or was it a university?
I think it was uni.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. These things need to be discussed, I think, sometimes, because this is how we learn. You know, it is important to discuss this.
Discuss it with the referee after match.
Ah, well.
And face the hand. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's a question. It's not about gone or no go.
Yeah.
We need to build up and prepare for the future. Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Don'ts. I suppose don't be too averse, being too dismissive, or do this, and also don't be too nitpicky. Don't try to nitpick everything. Try to referee with a level of simplicity. You know, allow yourself to stop overanalyzing and overthinking every single rally. You know, try to create a safe environment for you to create that simplicity of volleyball. don't focus too much on things not on court. You're hearing people talking at the back, crowd being like talking about things, and the decision that you made 2 seconds ago, just try not to focus on things that are not on the court. Try to contain yourself and keep working on the game that you have ahead. Don't assume that all players and coaches know all the rules. Sometimes, time and again, we see some unique situations or some situations that are not as unique. People don't really know the rules. So it's important for you not to assume that everybody knows the rules. Don't do knee-jerk reactions. See the ones that we've seen earlier on. You see, it was like, it happened, this was my decision, but then everything else was a bit out of control on that stage, with a yellow card just jumping out without really following the protocol, without really having a discussion with the captain, saying your coach is being inappropriately behaving, therefore they will get a yellow card. So no knee-jerk reactions. Try to get a little bit of a breather. Try to get a little bit of a space. Don't get angry. How easy to say, isn't it? Don't get angry. Well, you will get angry or you will get frustrated, but try to contain that in a way, maybe some deep breathing might help, something that will ground you again. Don't tolerate bad behavior and swearing. If that's Andy's comment. If your granny would be offending, so are the parents and the kids that are watching the game right behind you. Yes. Do's. Practice. I think the more you referee, the more you will be able to see and read things. I've put everything in brackets because I don't think that we will ever be able to see everything. I think every game is unique and it's different, and we take something out of it. It never ends. It's an ongoing, very dynamic thing, refereeing. But the more experience you accumulate, the more things and unique things you have to face, the better prepared you become, and the better you contain yourself emotionally, the less stress you feel, more confidence, you feel. Listen. Actively listen to people. There may be some validity in what they're saying to you. Try to be cooperative in a way. Okay, let's find out this, or if someone says something, let me explain the interpretation of the rules. Allow them to understand that you are trying to explain that to them in a respectful way. Admit a mistake. It will make you more credible, but not in the context of a team pressuring you. So if a team captain comes over and saying, oh, what was that? That was, and then blah, blah. Don't be like, oh, yes, I'm really sorry. That's my fault. Try to contain that, being like, okay, I hear you. I heard your opinion. Okay, let's move on. I think what happens when this occur is that the moment they see that they can apply more pressure to you, the less likely is that it will be ongoing and continues throughout the game. So that can be very difficult to manage. Questions?
Can I add something?
Please do, yes.
Cards, but as well, I've been taught this, and when it's a pinch point on a set or a match, and somebody's obviously going out on a rant or whatever.
Good shout.
Instead of red carding somebody, that is a loss of point. It can end the game on a point. It's better to expose them or disqualify them, because that's the end of point. They don't get a point.
Please don't disqualify them.
Don't disqualify them. But definitely expulsion.
It's reading the game of the spirit of the game, and whatever. If it's a match point situation and somebody's done something stupid, you don't want to punish the whole team for that player. So don't red card them, because then they lose the point and they lose the game. It's better to disqualify them, and then they don't lose the point, then that player just gets in that game.
No, because you have to make a decision right there, right now for that behavior. It's like I'm telling you, I'm going to whistle and out next set.
Hey, that's the consequences of his stupid actions, isn't it?
I think
So I think in that situation, if any referee expels or disqualifies a player, we have to write. The referee has to write to the competitions officer to explain what happened. So in that situation, I would write and say I expelled the player so that I didn't end the set. Therefore, please treat the sanction as equivalent of a red card. And it's up to the competitions then what actually happens. Because you're right, you don't want to adversely penalise them the following week as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a good point.
But during the game, each point has the same value. So I will have to a little bit disagree with this. Because if you did it, let's say fifth set, you would do it at 14-14, but you wouldn't do it at 14-13. But each point is equal just 1 point.
Towards the end of a set is the advice. Definitely don't finish the match. We collectively want the players to decide the outcome of the game, not the referee decide. And yes, you could argue the player has decided that they're being an idiot and getting a penalty. But we want the play actions, let's say, to determine the outcome of the game. So the penalty should be, or the sanction should be a penalty, which is a point, fine. If that's 2-2 in the first set or 10-10 in the fifth set, fine. But when you start getting towards the end of sets, don't try and finish or really give a team advantage. 13-all even, for example, in the fifth set, or 22-all. Don't give a red card, jump to the expulsion.
How will you justify that just to the other team? Because they're now expecting a red card from that behaviour and they're hoping for the benefit of the point, whereas an expulsion would benefit them.
Explain to me that was deserved expulsion in the red card.
I suppose as well, because we think that because there's no a point, it's no valuable. I think it actually is, especially if a player of the main team is actually causing a commotion. The moment they are getting out the court, someone else needs to be in there. So ultimately, there is a punishment. Maybe it's not a point, but actually you are removing that player from their ability to play for the next 2-3 points on the 15th set. And if that player, for example, is a valuable player, is a main player in there, they're already losing something. So their behavior is not. Yeah.
The person is repeat. Well, sorry, you already had one red card, you had 2 red cards.
You can't have, one player can't have 2 red cards.
Yeah, I would go here.
So these had various levels of sanctions as such.
Yes.
It's happened one game I've been involved with. I was second referee. First referee, instead of giving the red card, gave expulsion. North Macedonian captain, opposite, probably one of the best players in the team. He was ecstatic. He ran about the hall so happy because his team hadn't lost a point, even though he now had to leave the sports hall for the remainder of the set. They did go on to lose the set anyway because they now have lost the star player. But that was fine in the instant. He was happy that he hadn't received the penalty point.
Yes. But obviously he received a penalty because he was no longer able to play.
It's for me. It's all like the fact that I think I'm still learning that is reading the spirit of the game. Like you don't. Although we are going by the rules, we are going by the law. You still want to interpret the law to the circumstances of what's happening in the game.
One thing learning the rules, and then it's another thing that hard to read.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think everybody learns that all the time.
Yes.
It's the application of law and how you apply them in the game. Because ultimately, like you say, you're not wanting to actually influence the game by your decisions, but you're trying to let the game flow. Like you say, let the players determine the outcome of the game more than you determine. You're there just to facilitate, ultimately.
Craig?
I guess not a question, but just a an idea, I guess, that's not put out. But I feel like these sort of things when people ask questions and scenarios, and there's obviously Facebook group and stuff. But what I was wondering is something like once a month every so often. What I was wondering is people have controversial calls, and I'm not talking like now, like things like that, but things happening in the game, there's new situations happening that particularly for younger referees might not know what should I have done, was this the right thing or the wrong thing? But like the example I'm going to give is like in Scottish football they do like the VAR review, they have VAR different.
Yeah.
But if someone was to like do once a month, once every 3 months, hate the Scottish games, because obviously we see videos of like international games, it's different, referees on different sides,
Oh, yeah.
extra referees and stuff like that. It's like, okay, there's been a couple of situations that have happened in Scotland, in the leagues. Was this situation handled correctly? Not to punish a referee or anything like that, but just to say, like, then as referees, we know, oh, that thing that happened in X, V, Y, that should have been handled differently, or that was handled perfectly. And the players can watch it as well to know, okay, in future, this is the right call, or this is what happened, or anything.
So there's been sort of high level discussions about that, and I kind of touched upon this continuous professional development. That is one of the things that we would like to. Yeah, absolutely. I think we need to get better at sharing scenarios and explaining how they should be handled.
Well, very quickly, just with rude language, a lot of I've started seeing it in Scotland quite a bit, where people you can speak a different language than the referees will then swear in that language. And as a referee, sometimes obviously you can have an idea, but you don't know whether they're actually swearing or just being loud at one of their teammates or something of the sort. And you sometimes will only learn from a spectator telling you after the game. Or, and this is where my question more lies, is another team's player, the opponent's team player will come and tell you, listen, they've said this word in Polish or in Italian 5 times in a row now. This is what it means. Can we do something about it? How would you approach it? Because
I suppose you can only know what you know. You can only know what you know, and if you're not obliged to know 1,000 different languages, absolutely. But you can read someone's, I think you might not be able to interpret what they said. But if I'm swearing in Greek and I'm like, I think you can understand that something is. I think it translates on its own. There's something going on there. I'm not, and I'm shouting. You can only know what you can know. That's it, Alexis. That's why I told you before. If we sit and overanalyze every single situation, we are losing from it. Stop throwing tantrums, Mari.
Based on what just happened and the way you've acted,
Yes.
I guess that you're not happy, so please cut out.
Yeah, just stop throwing tantrums. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Based on the subject of reflection on previous matches and how referees behaved, or I don't know, some trends there. I believe there was a feedback form at the end of last season.
Yes,
and
we are aware.
Results were published. There were a lot of not results. There were a lot of answers saying there is definitely something needs to be done about biases on the referees, and that's for all. We all play for a club, and then we need to officiate for that club and against some others, and it's kind of a weird and tricky situation to be in, and that's obviously a conflict of interest. How can we do anything towards that? I mean, sometimes there are videos, there are repeated behavior, or I wouldn't say anything about that once per season behavior.
Okay.
But repeated behavior sometimes after a while becomes a pattern. Do you have any? Are we going to address that, or do we have? Or do we just look the other way?
I don't think you can.
Me neither, but
I think if there are issues or concerns or problems, I would say, because time and again, we've seen on the Facebook page, time and again, we've seen some comments coming from coaches or clubs that are quite rude. And I don't think that this is the right platform to share feedback in a rude way. The feedback is that you can send us an email. You let us know what has happened. If you have a video, you can also add it on. Just explain your perspective of things and what you think has happened. It will be helpful for us to know in that way. I don't think that publicly putting things up and discouraging people from becoming, I think it's discouraging people from becoming better. So I wouldn't use the Facebook page to criticize a person's referee's decision. It becomes really disrespectful and really discouraging for new referees. I would say if you have a problem, you can always email us.
It's very hard for us to address the wider question, unless you can go and find me 150 referees that aren't affiliated with clubs.
No, I get it. Definitely. My follow-up question is, So, sorry, just to finish anything up with this, my follow-up question is, are we prepared to have a policy towards that?
I suppose that there's been times where we had to resolve things, and they were resolved in the best possible way, because people from clubs has let Dave know that there has been some difficulties, and Dave stepped up, and I think he had constructive discussions with people in a one-to-one basis, in a respectful and safe way. And that's helpful, because the referees involved, they were able to develop and continue refereeing, as opposed to being publicly criticized on Facebook. So that's why I said that there's been some posts that have been quite difficult. So I would encourage you all to.
The feedback next season will be better towards that.
I hope so.
Can I
Yes.
put that into context? I've been refereeing for over 40 years, and from a first referee's point of view, I've very rarely seen any bias take place. Second referee, particularly, that might be an issue, whereas you're in close proximity to a coach, and that's your team, and they're sort of having influence on you. I don't think it's the referee as such that's out to then favour one team or another.
Intentionally, yeah.
But I think professionally, we've got a group of good referees who go out, even when John's refereeing Dundee, he's very, very fair, no bias there whatsoever. So I would say the majority of our referees do not come into that category. And I would hate for the discussion to finish on a negative note.
No, absolutely. And I think
we just seen a video as well where we call the referee being 0.5 seconds too late. I mean, you don't really have time to think, oh, that's my team, I should probably give them the point. I mean, you just do it as a reaction
that's
rather than
true.
a thoughtful process of whose team getting the point.
Yes.
And is it my team?
Right. With this, I will leave you.